most fun part about that story is that I met a guy in treatment who I was like, this is perfect, and had done a lot more drugs than I had. A recipe for love.
The love addiction dynamic, but it adjusts our chemistry. I mean, it's the one that I was, that's what got me into recovery. I was suicidal. 80% of the people that have survived a serious suicide attempt or had something to do with an intimate relationship, conflict, or somebody left. It never gets written down as love addiction, right? So it never gets treated.
You know, it all comes back to whatever was going to give me that instant gratification and that like instant satisfaction of feeling like, oh, I'm so like warm and loved. Everybody's goal is just like to be okay with themselves and be able to sit with themselves and not like need all of those outside things to tell them that they're enough.
Hey there, and welcome to the Recovery Crew. I'm Dr. Bob Beare, the recovery and trauma guy, and this is Deep Waters. You're in the deep waters here, and we are discussing matters of recovery and healing and transformation and living the life that you've been, that we all long for, right? We're trying to get the old stuff out of the way and live this life that is our birthright. Yeah. Okay, today our special guest is Camille Reid. Dynamite recovery, just a really good heart. Her story is really juicy. You will get a lot out of this. So I'm glad you're with us. So I also want you to know that Deep Waters Recovery has a lot of ways into the water with us, right? Or onto the boat, onto the recovery crew. The Deep Waters Intensive is a 3-day intensive transformational weekend. We have facilitator trainings, and go to the website and you can see all kinds of ways into. We also have training videos. Glad you're with us. You're in the deep waters now. Okay, there is Camille Reid. All right, we are doing a unique version of the recovery crew today. There's a couple of things happening here. One is Camille Reid is the new programs coordinator for Deep Waters Recovery. And she is a solid woman in recovery, and she is our guest speaker today on the podcast. And she is the person that gives the announcements for Deep Waters. There's so many hats. She can't even wear them all. But anyway, welcome, Camille. Good to see you.
Thanks, Dr. Bob. Good to see you too.
All right, so we're going to have fun switching hats here today, but the main thing is we're going to get Camille's story, which is really, she has come a long way. There's parts of it that's like, wow, really? You? And I think I hope we get to hear some of that. I mean, you don't have to flop the whole story out if you don't want to, but there's probably folks that could benefit from hearing a young, dynamic, up and running, solid person as you are that has come so far. That it's a hope story for sure. So before we get to that though, I'm going to ask you to switch hats into Deep Waters Recovery Programs has a lot going on, and I'm so grateful to have Camille bring her energy to it. But right now she's just going to list the stuff so you can know what we're doing. All right, go. Thank you.
All right, switching hats. So Deep Waters Recovery is an advanced recovery and healing experience for men and women. We've got the Deep Waters Intensive, which is a 3-day transformational trauma resolution experience that uses psychodrama, bioenergetics, and rituals of empowerment. We've got our upcoming facilitators training, which is going to be March 26 and 27. It's an opportunity for anyone who works with others to do their own inner work and also learn some of the action tools that they can use in groups. You can also become certified as an experiential facilitator. If you would like to bring the sustainable trauma resolution into the curriculum of your treatment facility, the Deep Waters programming might be a good fit. Deep Waters has an outpatient program. You can work with Dr. Beare and his colleagues in either groups, individuals, couples, and family sessions. If you'd like to reach out by phone, our number is 512-677-7847, or you can send us an email at admin@deepwatersrecovery.com. We've also got weekly blogs that come out on Fridays, and every Wednesday we'll have a new podcast, and that's going to be under the recovery crew at Deepwater's Recovery. And then just go on and follow us on all social media accounts. And Bob is also on TikTok as the recovery and trauma guy, which is quite exciting.
I have mastered it. Not really. It's fun though.
Just a bunch of fun.
Yeah. And as is this podcast, and that was really well done with energy. Thank you. I don't think anybody probably fell asleep during that section. Like Joe Rogan has this giant hour-long intro thing. I think people just skip over it, or yeah. I don't know. But anyway, so let's get into this. So I want to let everybody know who you are. Camille Reid is a person in long-term recovery. She's a peer recovery specialist. She's studying social work and addictions counseling, and is I don't have it. I have one of her art pieces, but I don't have it here at the desk. But I don't know if anybody's ever tried to use, if you've ever used a wheel, but you don't learn that overnight. She's like a real ceramic artist, and maybe we'll hear some more about that in your story and how important that's been to your recovery. She's also she writes that she's an amateur fisher woman, but actually she knows a lot more about fishing than any woman I've ever met, and loves it. Who is this person? Passionate about helping others recovery, especially women struggling with love addiction. We were just talking about it today. She's rescuing at least 3 people that we know of today. I told her, you're probably going to burn out eventually being such a good person. But actually it looks good on you. It looks like it's coming naturally. It doesn't look like you're trying to rescue the world for your own purposes as much.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see about that. All right. So, okay. So this is your time. We're going to just use that old format that we know about, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Somewhere in the middle there, we're going to throw some creative questions at both of us to play around with. But this is your time. I'm so glad you're here. Just the Camille Reid story, huh?
There we go. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Bob. It really is a real treat, for me to be able to share my story. I haven't really done it in a while in this sort of way, or like at a meeting even. It's usually just bits and pieces that I'm telling, to my peers or just other people that I meet in the rooms, just trying to have like that relation to them and what they're going through. Just because I do feel like not only am I an oversharer, but I also have a lot of layers to my story. So yeah, I'm 28 years old. I've been in recovery for the last 6 years. It's been, an up and down kind of ride with all of it. And so starting way at the beginning, starting from the beginning, I was 12 years old, I think, probably the first time I experimented with alcohol, and it was with my family, just with my nieces and nephews, which were kind of like cousins to me. All of us, just alcohol was always present in all of my family gatherings and everything that we did. So it was just whatever, like we just did it, and it wasn't really a big thing. And I guess as time went on, being like 14 and 15, things started to like ramp up a little bit for me. I was in my household and I had both my parents, and I also have a brother and a sister, and we all, like, everything was like quote unquote fine in our house, like nothing like major from the outside that someone would say like, oh, that's, like a dysfunctional family. But my dad was older. He had me whenever he was 56. So I think a lot of like burnout was happening on his end. I can't really imagine like having a child at 56. And he's got a lot of other children as well. So he was present, but also not present at the same time, and dealing with some of his own like process addictions that were going on, not necessarily substances, but other things that like we were aware of, but it didn't really feel, like anything was necessarily like affecting us in the moment. And then whenever I was 15 years old, I had a really close friend die in a car accident. And that happened right down the street from my house. I actually heard it happen. And I was sitting out on the front porch and I was like, wow, that sounded like a horrible crash. Like, what is going on? And I remember my mom saying like, oh, you should check on like your friend Garrett, who lives like down the road. And I was like, what? No, because I knew that it's a windy road, like down off Lake Travis. And a couple hours later, I found out that 4 of my friends had gotten in a horrific car accident. And that's all we knew at the time. And so I went and got one of my friends and we went to the emergency room. And then later found out that the person that I was closest to had passed away in the accident. And the other friends were there like to see it. And it was just horribly traumatic. We were a really, really close group of friends to begin with. And we had all been experimenting just with, like smoking weed after school and just like being young potheads. But after that, we all kind of formed this really intense trauma bond between us to where we knew like things had happened. We knew that it was, possibly like could have been prevented with what was going on, like just young kids like drinking and hanging out and all of that. And it just created us to start experimenting with hallucinogens, like uppers, like Adderall, just all of it. Like it all just came like flooding in, like this big trauma happened. And we all just went running for it.
And it's, when we don't have tools, it's as good an idea as anybody else has, right? Let's medicate the pain.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, unless somebody's got a better idea. And for most of us, it's like, no, I didn't have anybody around me. It's not like we have a tribe where we can do healing rituals around. I like that. I like the phrase trauma bond.
Yeah.
We're gonna bond into something healthy, probably, or bond into something destructive, right?
And yeah, we definitely all went the destructive path just because, we were all 15 and 16. Like that's when I see 15 and 16-year-olds now, I'm like, oh my gosh, like like you're barely formed. How do you know what to do with it? So yeah, that was middle of my high school career. And then after that, I was pretty heavily addicted to Adderall. I was never prescribed it. I was being given it to by friends all the time. And just using it like in such a severe way every single day, to where I was like rapidly losing weight. And I know that it was like so unhealthy, like when people saw me. And then fast forward like through high school, that, like luckily I graduated. I really don't know how. I think it's just because I was there. And they, Cedar Park High School just let me leave for some reason and was like, I guess you're fine. Go off into the world. Good luck.
Yeah. Don't cause us any trouble.
Yeah. They're like, we don't care what happens to you. And then after that, so also through that trauma bond, I got into a relationship with somebody that we created an even deeper trauma bond from the group. And it turned into, still to this day, I think it's like my most extreme realization and understanding of just like how intense I can be in my love addiction and like my codependency. And this person was not abusing substances as much as I was, but he would like try and tell me, like you need to like slow down, like you need to stop. And like there was no stopping it. And I just knew like, he was in the love addiction too. So nothing was going to stop there. We graduated high school and we both went to Germany for 3 months. Because like, why stay in the United States? Like, whatever, let's just leave. And at the time I really did have like some drive for life and trying to, navigate life while on these substances. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
For most of us, there's usually a period of time while we can still at least have our head above the horror to say, wait a minute, at least I want to do that, right? So you still had, at least your eyes were above water, huh?
Yeah, I was slowly just trying to use a little bit and still, no, I really wasn't having like any physical withdrawal symptoms. So I think that's what was like keeping me from it. And maybe that was like my age or like trying to control it in between. But I went off and had just a horrific experience with that relationship. It was so tumultuous and toxic and like abusive in every way possible. And I just kind of like was lost, you know, like
I don't know how people I don't think anybody does very well with a relationship while using, right? Relationships are already inherently messing with our chemistry at all times. And then you mess with it synthetically on top of it. It's amazing that there aren't more like really bad things that happen, because there's nothing that pokes at our old stuff, trauma, more than intimate relationships.
Yes.
And so you're in Germany, having an exploding relationship. Is that where we are in this story?
Yeah, that's where we're at. Both my parents were like, "What are you doing? You have to come home." And I was like, "No, like absolutely not. Like I'm going to stay here forever if I can." But it wasn't forever. And like I had some relief there. I probably had like a good month and a half where I was like, only drinking. I was like, this is great. I can't find any substances. Like I'm healed. I'm going to be normal. Like this is wonderful. And then I flew back and things could not have gotten worse. It was probably just a matter of days that I ended up just back with another friend who was with me in the beginning of the close friend dying, the trauma bond. She was there and her and I were just off to the races in the next 6 months, right after I turned 18. Every single day was me doing hallucinogens. So I was constantly in this like either LSD or like mushroom state. And I thought that was my daily medicine. And then amphetamines to make sure I was awake, even though I haven't had an issue with that. So not fully formed, 18 years old, trying to navigate life with two of the most hallucinatory substances that I could possibly be taking. And of course, like my parents knew, I wasn't staying at their house. I just went to go live with my friend because I was a mess. Like my hair was different colors. I was dressing like I was at a carnival every day. And I thought it was just, the best. I thought it was great. And, getting involved like in clubs and like I was like getting money for like dancing in clubs and like that was my thing. And so I was like, this is great. Like what a wonderful lifestyle. That started, and it was only from August to April that my parents decided to have an intervention with me that next April and send me off somewhere. Because at this point in time, I had really, really got head into the amphetamines and was having some really, really bad psychosis, to the point where I had like called the police on myself because I thought like there were shadow people like trying to get into my parents' house, and me trying to like explain like totally clear-headed, clear mind to my mom that these people were like trying to hurt my family. And I remember them saying like, what drugs are you on? And me being so like convincing, trying to say like, I'm not on anything. Like you have to believe me. Just complete delusion, complete like psychosis delusion, not anywhere in my right mind. So they had an intervention and I ended up getting shipped off to California to a place that like sounded lovely, sounded like a summer camp.
It's important that a treatment center sound lovely.
Yes. Yeah. It sounded just magical. Like, I really needed a vacation at that time. And that's what the person was telling me. And I didn't see it. I was like, they obviously see something. I don't really have anything else to do. Like I'm pretty bored with my life. So apparently they have a plane ticket for me. Let's go. So I went off and I ended up, I'm going to talk more about this in the Step 3 podcast, but I ended up getting sent to a Scientology based rehab that was in California. My parents didn't know that it was Scientology based. This was something that the interventionist did not disclose to them. He obviously made a ton of money by sending me there. Good for him. I hope he has multiple homes.
Yeah.
So whatever. So I went there, and I couldn't use the phone for the first 2 weeks, but I ended up staying there for about 6.5 months in California, learning everything about Scientology, trying to get myself off of drugs.
Yeah.
Which,
well, you stayed off of drugs while you were there learning about Scientology, apparently.
Yeah, long enough. Learned a lot about ethics and other Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard related morals.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the beginning years there of just chaos, starting at 15. So now I'm 19 in that, and I stay in California. My brother drove my car and my cat out to me and basically said, like, good luck. We're going to help you, like, stay in this apartment for a little bit. Like, I really hope you get a job, and I hope you, like, get on your feet.
So this is after you got out of the Scientology treatment center?
Yes.
So you went straight into the world, no sober living transition?
I didn't even know that was a thing. They didn't tell us anything. I had no idea. I didn't even know that there was, like, a place where people could go and talk about being an addict. I think they're called meetings.
Yeah, I've heard of
I didn't know anything about that. It was just me. I just got a job, and I did okay for a little bit. The most fun part about that story is that I met a guy in treatment who I was like, this is perfect. We're going to live together. This is great. Like, he's my solution. Like, we immediately got out and stayed in the same town, and he was, like, my focus and my solution to everything. Like, he's going to keep me sober. He was like 7 or 8 years older than me and had done a lot more drugs than I had been in many different places. And that was eventually the person that introduced me to heroin. So it was perfect. It was just a recipe for love.
There's so many beautiful 1970s songs in that paragraph.
Yes. Yes.
The one,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is a doorway to the conversation. We probably won't unpack it all. We'll probably do another whole podcast around the love addiction, the love addiction dynamic, but it adjusts our chemistry. And for some of us, it adjusts it significantly and in a way that even drugs don't get at. I mean, it's the one that that's what got me into recovery. I was suicidal when she left. I mean, I can laugh at it now and do little vignettes about it. But at the time it was, wait a minute, if I have to wake up with this pain in my chest one more day, I'm going to kill myself. And that's a problem. I mean, I've got some statistics about love addiction that are very clear that it's killing a lot. Suicide people, 80% of the people that have survived serious suicide attempts, say that the final motivating factor had something to do with an intimate relationship, some kind of conflict, or somebody left, or that's the one that pushes them over. But when people suicide over that, it never gets written down as love addiction, right? So it never gets treated. It's amazing. So I was going to say, we'll talk about that later, but it sounds like we've already started talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it all comes back to me continuously trying to fill something that was inside of me with whatever was the easiest thing.
Yeah.
Like, whatever was going to give me that instant gratification and that, like, instant satisfaction of feeling like, I'm so, like, warm and loved.
Yep.
When everybody's goal is just, like, to be okay with themselves and be able to sit with themselves and not, like, need all of those outside things to tell them that they're enough and tell them that they're okay.
Yeah. But there wasn't anybody who's going to tell you about that then, just like me. There's nobody that's going to tell anybody that, oh, the heroin's not great for you. Why don't you stop doing? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
She's probably not the best choice for you, Bob. I mean, I've got many stories about how I avoided people that were in recovery when I was going toward a partner who was obviously just one big red flag. I did not need to be anywhere near that person, but I had to find people who would say, well, do you love her, Bob? Yeah, I love her. All right, go. I stayed away from anybody in recovery when I was looking for feedback around that. So nobody can tell us anything when we're in our delusion. We have to get in enough pain to say, wait a minute, let me try something else. Yeah?
Yeah, it was a lot of...
So in your story, are we to the pain yet? We're not even there yet, are we? Anywhere near it?
This is the pain. I'm going to get to, this is the pain. Because it's like, yeah, I mean, it was painful from the beginning. I was in pain when I started using at 15. It was like a great pain. But I just, kept letting that threshold get a little higher for how bad it was going to get. So I stayed out in California for about 2.5 years. While I was in that relationship, I decided to get into another relationship because I thought I had time for two. Another equally unhealthy person. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to do a little bit of both and see how it's going on, while also starting to abuse opiates and heroin and lie to both of them about what I was doing. And they both wanted me to be on a marijuana maintenance plan. I was like, I'm on my own. I've got my own recovery plan over here. It's working out really well. So just very sick, a lot of pain around all of that. And I ended up having to leave California because of the situation I had invited into my life. Just really unhealthy people that were unsafe for me to be around. It was no longer safe for me to be in California. It was only a matter of time before I was either, something was going to happen to me, or I was going to overdose, or just get mixed up with the wrong people. I was constantly just giving myself out, ready to be used for something that was just going to turn into a nightmare. So I tried to come back. My brother flew out, drove me back to Texas. On the drive, we were coming to a checkpoint and I had a lot of weed on me. And I threw it out the window. So this was in El Paso, Texas. Threw it out the window, started chain smoking cigarettes. It was no use. Luckily, nothing happened. I don't know how. I don't have any legal issues. I should have been arrested for that because they knew, and the drug dog was all over the vehicle, for everything. And I found out 2 miles later, after we left the checkpoint, that I had thrown my emergency Suboxone out the window. And on the drive, I completely broke down and had to come clean that I had been abusing heroin to my brother, because I was about to go into severe withdrawal. And we had a whole day of driving left.
Yeah. So for anybody that's listening and doesn't know what Suboxone is, it's a opioid based medicine that knocks back the withdrawal symptoms of heroin withdrawal, right? Yeah,
it blocks the receptor whenever, and if you try and use when you're on it, you won't get high. It just completely blocks that receptor. Yeah. So I only had it to make sure I didn't get sick on this drive,
right,
and try and be normal. And my whole thinking was that, okay, I'm going to leave all of those, I'm going to change my location, the geographical fix, and leave all of those drugs behind me. And I'm going to come to Texas and it's going to be beautiful. And my family's going to be there. But yeah, in a matter of not even 24 hours, I had to come clean. And I had also had a girl that I had met at the Scientology rehab die of an overdose just a couple months before that. And this girl was she was the first real female relationship that was loving and caring, and called me on my bullshit and was able to hold me accountable and tell me that I was being around bad people. It was a type of female friendship I had never experienced before. So when she died of an overdose, I was like, I want to do that. I also want to go down her path. I also want to spiral into opiate addiction, and like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes it seems like a solution. I mean,
yeah,
some people say, "Oh, that's not an option."
yeah,
We have to be aware that we get in enough pain that isn't. It's an option for folks.
yeah. It seemed like just the best at the time. So back in Texas, I went about maybe a year and a half of living. I immediately had to leave my parents' house. They were not, I mean, I was trying to use, it was a nightmare.
Mm.
The guy from California followed me to Texas within a couple months, which I really didn't feel like I had any healthy boundaries or like coping skill, like
Right.
nothing that I have now to say like, hey, please don't come. So he showed up. We both got right back into the game, and we're living in a hotel within like a month, because just I had crashed my car. He had crashed his car. We could not pay for anything. I was pawning everything I owned. And I ended up stealing a lot of money from my father, like a embarrassing, sad, insane amount. Like every day, just thinking that nobody would like notice. Like, I don't know. I check my bank account every day now. Like I would immediately notice. So yeah, that was when I knew it was just, I was waiting every day to do a little bit too much and not wake up from it and just feel okay that I was not going to live anymore. And like, you know, of course I was like a victim of everything I was doing. I was like, oh, it'll be better for my family if I'm not around.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's a horrible thought that like all addicts have. But it's really like so selfish. Like that would be, you know, just the end for them forever.
Yeah. It's part of the
So
delusion.
I'm going to transition.
No, it's part of the delusion, right? When we're under the influence of drugs and alcohol, even if we're having like a gap, like the month and a half that you said you had, well, and I was just drinking or whatever it is, we have the disease still stays alive. It takes a long time and a lot of work and a lot of presence and a lot of spiritual work actually to detox from the thinking that we have. It is delusional, and you know there's no clinical intervention that anybody's come up with to change it. I mean, it is death defying, and it grips the soul at a deep level. You know, look at you, and it took you absolutely down to the bottom where you were hoping you didn't wake up in the morning. Man, that moves me. Man, I'm glad you made it.
Yeah, there's a lot of just suicidal tendencies constantly. It was just pure survival mode. Yeah. I mean, you know, lack of food, water, shelter.
Yeah. So what was the thing? What was the thing that, I don't know. It's like right now in the story, we're all looking at each other. It's hopeless, right? Right. I mean, it's a good moment. And then, but something must have happened.
Yeah, it was hopeless. Something did happen. I had just gotten to the point, I had switched to IV use. And at that point, like I could, you know, after using with the needle for over a year, I knew that like my body was like no longer holding up. And like you know, I was 22. I was somewhere between 21 and 22. And I just thought, I remember my mom saw me. I came to her house, you know, begging for like $20, I'm sure. And I remember I would used to go to their change dish and like take all the pennies because I was like, this is great. He's going to want this. My dealer's going to love this. And I remember her saying to me, she was like, you look old. Like your face looks like you're aging. And like, she was like, you look like she could see it on me that I probably didn't have much longer left doing what I was doing, that it was aging me. Like my skin was just like weathered. Like I just could, you know, I had just horrible picking my skin and like short hair and like multicolored and very sickly. And I told my mom, I don't know, maybe like a couple months later, like that I did need help. I was like, I don't know like what I'm doing. And I called her on the phone because I was like embarrassed to see my family in person. And I remember calling her on the phone and she was at work. And I know she like really, really wanted to help me because they've never not wanted to help me. But I feel like I was like, I'm going to call all the treatment centers and like, I'm going to do this. Like, I've got this, you know, because I don't think she knew what to do or where to start. Somewhere along the way, I had gone, my mom took me to an AA meeting. I think it was the La Hacienda alumni meeting. Somehow I ended up there. And I remember sitting in that room and I was like, what is this? Like, where am I? Like, who are these people? I didn't even know there was like a room of people that like talked about this. And yeah, it's a little like blurry for me, but somehow I got into treatment. A 30-day place. That place didn't stick. I was using within 6 months of leaving of there. I was, you know, I met a guy there, obviously.
Somehow there's a through line.
Yeah, there's always a through line, like any co-ed situation. So then I had another like 8 months of using. And then I had been seeing a therapist, a local Austin therapist who I still see, who still is like just the greatest person in my life. For that. And I had come to his office, blacked out. I passed out on his couch. And he obviously knew that I was in a really hopeless place. He told me that, I don't know. I said some stuff to him that day where I was willing to go. And he immediately got me into a treatment center here out in Wimberley. Mm-hmm. In the first 24 hours of me being there, I saw that it was a co-ed facility and I lost my mind. I told every staff member that I saw there and everybody I knew, I was like, if I stay at this place, like number one, it's going to be a waste of time. And number two, like I am going to try and sleep with every guy that's here. Like I cannot be in this situation. Like I need to go, you know, to a women's only facility. Like that was just my truth. And I had seen it happen so many times that I wasn't really willing to try anything else. So there was a lot of,
that's when we know we're just about to flip into the solution, when we make choices to not use when we could have the opportunity to use.
yeah.
So that's a sign that the desperation, because that's what we call it, right? The gift of desperation. I am so desperate that I'm even willing to tell the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was ready to start telling the truth, even though my whole life I've been a compulsive liar.
Yeah.
And just feeling something inside of me, knowing that like, I'm going to die if I do this again. If I do this again and invite toxic human beings into my life, one of us is going to die. One of us is going to, you know, how much longer can this go on? Like, how many years can I like allow this to continue?
Yep.
And like the pain that it was causing for me and just the chaos for everybody around me. So we need to move into some solution now.
Did they get you out of there or did you stay in the co-ed program?
So I AMA'd. I threw a fit.
AMA is against medical advice, right?
Yes. I sat in this office and they called everybody. My family was like, we're not coming to get you. It was February. Actually, it was almost exactly 6 years ago because it was February 23rd and today's February 19th. And it was icy outside. Not like it is now, but another type of icy. And I was planning to walk back to my apartment from Wimberley. Yeah,
so that's like it's like an hour by car. So yeah. For folks that are listening that don't know where Wimberley is, near Austin, Texas.
Yeah, so I ended up leaving. My dad could never say no to me, never. Like if I cried and hemmed and hawed enough, like I know my mom was so mad and my dad showed up like to rescue me. I went home for less than 24 hours while they tried to get me in the women's facility of the same place. My therapist like felt really bad because he knew I had just gotten out of a series of very, very abusive relationships, which is what, you know, led me to getting myself into treatment.
Right.
And within that 24 hours, somehow I ended up using at my house. Like there was no, like I was still very suicidal. I went upstairs and I wanted to stay sober. I was like, okay, I'm just going to go back to treatment. Like it's fine. And I remember I took a shower. I grabbed a Q-tip out of my mom's makeup drawer, which was on the bottom. And then I lifted up her makeup bag and I saw she had a whole entire bottle of Vicodin. And I was like, what's this doing here? Who would leave this behind? And I took all of them. And then I ended up having a seizure in the parking lot of the treatment center, trying to get there. And they were like, what are you on? And I was like, nothing. I don't know. I have no idea. Like, I'm not on anything. But yeah, I don't even know if like, you know, obviously my mom's going to listen to this. Like she probably doesn't even know that I took all the Vicodin in her drawer. There was nothing stopping me. Like, and I looked at it and I was like, I really don't want to take that, but I have to. Like, I don't even have an option right now. Like I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a long period of me fighting and hating life in treatment for the first month. I was super aggressive and hostile.
So now we're in an all-female facility for a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm with all the girls.
And it's a 12-step based program, and you're detoxing.
I did not go to detox.
Well, you're detoxing.
Yeah, I should have.
Well, we're in the first 30 days of any treatment program, we're detoxing from the chemicals and the thinking, right?
Yeah.
The thinking that got you there. That's one of the things that we don't talk about too much in recovery because it's kind of a tricky concept, but you know, it sounds like the drugs got you there. You made it, right? They were a good medication for your pain. That's how it was for me. Drugs, alcohol, love, sex, gambling, not so much gambling, that came later. But all those things worked, and they work until they don't work. And if we don't die from it, wow, then we have what, you know, it says in the big book that you and I know about, the textbook that we use, our dark past becomes our greatest possession, because we get a chance to use that story, this story right here, that I hope some people listen to and get some hope out of it. Yeah. No matter how far down the scale we've gone, we see how our story can benefit others, right? So
Yeah.
how did you make the turn toward committing to this lifestyle?
Well, it definitely took a long time in the beginning. This was the first time in years that I had been without one of my crutches, one of my distractions, because for me, it was all step 3, and trying to figure out how I can give away some of this control and anger that I was carrying around with me everywhere that I went, and turn it over to something that was bigger than me and a higher power of my own understanding. It was the most difficult thing I've probably ever had to mentally come to grips with, because I've always been the center of my own universe, and I've always felt like, okay, I'm in control, like I'm the one making these decisions, like it's all me, like I've got all like my ducks in a row around me.
Yeah.
And it just took so much of some really healing people that had an understanding of that trauma and of like the natural holistic approach to thinking that was going to get me just to relax and stop fighting life so much and fighting everybody around me. One of the biggest things that happened to me while I was in treatment was that I got put on like a 48-hour, like no talking thing multiple times, so many times. And this was because I would be listening to somebody talk and they would say something that I needed to correct them on. I had to. Like something inside of me, like I could not allow them to continue talking unless I like interjected and told them, you know, what was wrong.
Yeah. That's like, it's a mindfulness contract, we call it.
Yeah.
And it's for those of us that have a certain kind of personality, and I don't know if you're an Enneagram person or not. I think you are. Yeah, I'm a 7, so you can't shut me up. I mean, getting still is the solution for my type. My type is you know, a lot of addicts, a lot of people in recovery are type 7s. I don't know. Are you a 7?
I think so. I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember. It's been a while.
And the main development work for us is stillness, because
Yeah.
we are under pressure, and we have practiced being right and responding to, reacting to everything for so many years. It's going to take a little while to practice to be still.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why the step 11, right, is part of the deal.
Yeah, that was a huge part of it. Being introduced to meditation, and then being reintroduced to physical activity, because I was always into sports whenever I was younger. And then realizing that I still have my creative outlet, and that turned into the only way that I could process my inner anger, because I could not even verbalize it.
Yeah.
Like I had no capacity to put words to the hostility that was happening inside of my body.
Yep. You know, most of what's the energy that's in our body, the hostility, anger, whatever you want to call it, is really driven by shame, which was injected by trauma. It's a much bigger conversation, but you know, this podcast that you had me listen to yesterday, actually, now this is my new guru. Camille Reid is my new guru for telling me what podcast to listen to. But this is Brene Brown said, shame cannot survive if languaged. In other words, when we put words to what's really going on inside of us, the feelings of shame and the dark anger can no longer survive. It is, but it has to be named, right? We have to find a safe place where we can name it. So I'm guessing this treatment, was this the one that got you sober?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
So
goodness.
you must have found a safe enough rhythm in there to be able to get, because we say in recovery, if you have all it takes is the ability to be honest. That's the thing that keeps people from recovering, right? That's the one thing. You can even come to meetings drinking. It's not a requirement to not drink. The only thing that is really required in order to recover is some willingness and the ability to tell the truth. Now, there are a few people that just can't do it.
Yeah.
But you must have found a way to start unpacking the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it was obviously very easy for me to stay sober while I was in treatment. And I needed that separation. I needed the 90 days. I needed the 90 days to feel safe and secure, to be able to say, you know, speak my truth and be honest, and not have a fear of all of it getting like pushed back in my face, or, you know, whatever happens while we're in our addiction. But the big challenge always comes whenever you leave. It's that aftercare part that is so important. I did do sober living. I did get like a great group of females around me that were constantly like calling me on my shit. I started working right away.
There's many versions of this, Camille, and you know that. You've been around long enough now and I've been around longer than you, watching people try 1,000 different things, right? But if you want to try the thing that has the best chance, here's what it looks like. 90 days in a high accountability 12-step immersion program, followed by a minimum of 3 months of sober living with an almost equal amount of accountability, right? Getting up, also a strong requirement to get up and running in the world, school or work, right? And this has to happen for a year. Most people come into, okay, let me go to 30 days or an IOP for a couple of weeks and you see if I can't make it happen. And this, see my body posture with my fit. Let me see if I can't make it happen. It takes a year to let go of those grips on doing it ourselves, because you've said it several times. Yep, it was all about me. I'm going to figure this out. I got this. That's the banner that most addicts carry around. It says, I got this. So you stayed there long enough to relax those muscles, it sounds like. And that's what it takes. I've watched it happen over and over.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, I hate when somebody is in a meeting and they're like, it's so simple. Just like take all these suggestions. Like, I just hate, I hear them and I'm like, it's so true. But I know everybody who is where I was one day is like, F that, you know, it's not like, it's not so simple, but that's what I started doing. Like, I had a recovery advocate at this sober living environment. And, you know, they knew that I was a workaholic. They knew that I had relationship stuff. And I just kept saying all the crazy stuff that was going on in my head and in my body. I would say it out loud. I would say it like out to anybody. I would call people. I would meet people in person. Like every single day I would have insane thoughts about not just about using, but like, does this sound like a good idea? Like constantly calling people like, hey, this is like what I'm thinking about. And I would wait to hear their reaction and I'd be like, cool, good. Yep. Thought that was a bad idea. Just had to say it out loud and had to make sure.
We don't get to make this. I've been doing this a long time. I still like big decisions. I don't get to, I need adult supervision.
Yeah.
And certainly in the first year or two. I mean, definitely, what are you doing making decisions for? That brain of yours is the one that got you in. That brain cannot get you out. I mean, it's just, and what a relief it is, isn't it? So, wait a minute. I don't have to do this all by myself. I can get some help. You know, there's a bigger world here. You know, it's called, some people will put the spirituality label on it, right? It's also in that podcast yesterday, one of the other two guys, I can't think of their names. Maybe you can. Do you know? You have
Tim Ferriss?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, he said our neural network is part of the bigger neural network. We think that it's just this neural network right here. And the best example of going beyond that is 12-step recovery, in my opinion. When I'm in that room, I feel like I'm connected to something else. Sometimes I don't know what people mean by this God stuff, really. What is that? What are you talking about? What is that? Somebody up on a throne? No, it's the feeling I get when I'm connected, which is the opposite of what I had when I was using, right? I was trying to pack down those truths, those feelings, trying to medicate them because I thought they weren't appropriate or nobody could handle it or whatever. And now I'm in recovery. And now what you're telling me that I need to do is to tell the truth. Find somebody to get that out in the light, right? Because we buried it. So we were so good at medicating it and pushing it down.
Yeah.
Now we're connected to a bigger neural network, right?
Yeah.
So and this was like 6 years ago, I guess, huh?
Yeah. And I think being open to other people's feedback. Like if you're going to think something and do something and tell somebody about it, like be open to their criticism of you and don't, you know, instantly react and be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm fine, right? It's like, I like I'm the phrase, fine, everything's great.
I like the phrase butt hurt.
Yeah.
Don't get butt hurt.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing now is just like, I know it's annoying to some people because I'm constantly like laughing and people are like, what is funny? I'm like, life is a joke to me now.
Yeah, man, we can. And that's a little off-putting to people sometimes that we have such a blast with the recovery. Are you kidding? It's life and death. It's horror. Oh my God. Yeah. Actually, you know, I'm having a blast with recovery.
And yeah, you have to laugh at yourself. You have to be able to laugh at yourself in front of other people.
Yeah.
and show people that you don't know what you're doing, that you're out here like showing your ass and you're like, I don't know, guys, like I'm just here trying to survive in this world, and slowly like tamping down the ego
Yeah, man,
every day.
it's so much work to not be a mess.
Yeah.
We're all a big mess. We're all just energy floating around, and nobody has it together. Somebody tells me they have it together, they're suspicious to me. So, I think we're transitioning here. I want you to say just a little bit before. I've got a bunch of really tricky questions here that I want us to like answer kind of quickly and spontaneously as we move toward the end. But I'd like you to say something about this. It's a unique addiction, this love addiction stuff, which Pia Melody, who came out of the Meadows. She's one of the Meadows thought leaders who really started a whole movement in the process addiction world. And the process addictions are the ones where there's no plug to put in the jug, right? It's not a substance necessarily, although food is sometimes called a process addiction, but it's actually a sedative or a stimulant.
Yeah.
But in this case, we're talking about codependency and love addiction, right? Codependency is I'm hyper dependent on someone else loving me to be okay, or I need to help them. I got to be fixing somebody to be okay. Pia Melody says that love addiction is advanced codependency, right? When you add the romance drop in there, when you add that, you have taken it to heroin from marijuana. You've gone from marijuana to heroin.
Yeah, I do feel advanced in my addictions. I do feel like I've reached an advanced state.
Nice. You have a badge. Do we get a badge for that?
Yeah, I can just, I can see it's hard now, and I think that's where my desire to work with other people, even though me working in the recovery world is a little bit newer. I tried to go have like, this like adult professional job. I was like, I don't belong here.
Yeah.
But I think seeing it now, seeing the love addiction on somebody and seeing how, it really does create this energy around them. And I know exactly like what they're feeling and what they're going through.
It's a spell.
Yes.
It's some kind of, it's some kind of,
intoxication,
exactly. That's exactly what it is. And it's because it's serotonin, dopamine plus oxytocin plus endorphins, and the whole cocktail, man, is ignited when I get a chance to have that person look me in and really hit that place in that empty hole in my soul for 3 seconds. Right. It's all the 70s songs. Right. So anybody that's listening, I know kind of we're playing around with it and that kind of, but it's death defying shit, man. And there is a solution, and you can find on our website. There's a resources page with all the different 12-step groups. The Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous is the one that is the most effective for getting support around this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And one thing I will share about part of my recovery, I was always like, I was going to these meetings, I was very like in them, just doing the whole thing. But then I wasn't sharing with anybody besides my therapist that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I was going either to a codependency meeting or an SLAA meeting. And I was so embarrassed. I was like, so just upset with myself. I would sit in those meetings and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is me. I remember the first codependency meeting I went to, I just like started crying halfway through, and they were like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I just like know that I need to be here. And I knew that if I did not work on those issues, I was going to relapse. Like I love the 12 steps of AA and of CA. I love all of that, but I knew my truth and like the awareness that I had gained through my spiritual awakening was that I had to work on these issues, or there was not going to be any. I was either going to be a dry drunk or I was going to relapse. I was either going to be miserable or just back in my addiction.
Yeah. Often in the substance substance use programs, there isn't a whole lot of support. A lot of folks have not really looked at that stuff. In fact, they're acting out and looking across the room to see how they can get a hit of that oxytocin, right? A lot of times. You're not going to get that. It's really important, although the 12 steps can be superimposed onto anything in life, including my iPhone addiction or the cigar that I'm looking forward to a little later. I mean, or anything, we can superimpose it. But I will tell you, for me, I have not been able to recover from anything compulsive by replacing the wording. I have to be sitting with people that have struggled with the same obsession and compulsion. And I have to hear those stories. You know, if you read the big book of AA, there's a lot of little references to things, but, you know, I think Bill tried some psychedelics, and I think there's some tricky shit in that book about wives and stuff. I mean, there's tricky stuff. I don't think they work too much on certain aspects. I need to sit in a room where people understand that I will chase if I've got that love addiction going, I will, it upstages my parenting of my daughter. It upstages anything to do with work. I'll move across the world if I've got that hook in my neck.
Yeah.
And I've had it there a couple of times, and it's death defying. Yeah. And I'm so grateful, Camille, that you and I are working together now, because you know, sometimes I could cry about it. I feel alone. I don't think there's much information about this out there. Yeah. And I know when I was hurting, I had meetings that I could go to in the town that we're in. There's 3 or 4 a week. Mm-hmm. I mean, I needed immersion, baby. I needed treatment. I mean, drag me, lock me up for at least 30 days. But it's really rare, that kind of treatment. But I think it's important for those of us that have worked it and have some of the solution in our bodies to continue to talk about it, because it's pretty, it's running the show for a lot of people. Yeah. And just continue to scrape away at that, like, trauma resolution. Yeah. Because I don't feel like I'm ever going to be finished. I feel like this is just an ongoing, I'm grateful to have the awareness, but I am in no way an expert on becoming like cured. You're an expert on your own story, which I'm really grateful that you shared today. And I know there's more. We'll get you on here again